Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where we talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Sinner. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, because of the situation Harry's in, he starts kind of like, I guess because he's tiptoeing between life and death, he's kind of having these visions of sort. I think one is interesting because obviously he's having a, Thanksgiving with his daughter, her son, and his boss. And then obviously it's like, oh, dad, which is interesting because obviously by this point in time, obviously the time frame it's supposed to be taking place in, which is present day, he's asking for his dad. He's like, oh, dad, come on out, the food's ready. But his dad's dead. And it's like he wouldn't come out the bathroom. It's like, what is that supposed to mean? I mean, later on, he kind of because it's like this weird, interesting kind of sequence. Because I guess you could read a lot into it, but obviously it just shows you just how effed up Harry's life is, just like how complicated it is. Because you make the argument maybe that's supposed to reference, because the way Harry talks about it later on, like him and his dad, it's like, oh, like. Was there distance or whatever? Like, I forgot what the word that was actually used, but it was kind of like, oh, Harry was basically like, oh, that's kind of putting it nicely. Like, their relationship was severely complicated. And then it's like the box he had, there was water dripping from it. Then later on, the next one, it's kind of like it went in a loop. So he starts at the beginning again, but then he sees his mom there. She pours him cereal. And it's a whole situation of her being like, why don't you love me? And I think it's a situation of him feeling guilty, like he felt like he abandoned his mom and everything. Then there's the thing with Sonia. His grandson is there, and she's like putting all this water on him. I'm like, what the hell does any of this mean? Once again, you can look, I guess you could read deeper interpretations of all that. I don't know what, it might be one of those things of maybe there is an actual interpretation, or maybe it's up to you to interpret it. I mean, more so than anything, it's up to Harry to interpret it. But nevertheless, the fact of the matter is, Jamie does get him out there. We end up finding out until much later on, but it seems like we got the time frame. It seems like he was in there for like 8 hours. But basically, Jamie's like, no, it's okay. It's okay. Like, I had to pull the tube out because that's exactly what, Nick did for me. Like, that's how this works. You have to believe that you're going to die. And it's like, Harry comes back and he just sees the world a little bit differently. Like, just the way he's looking at things, it's like something's definitely different within him. And then the fact is, he's actually sitting there calmly talking to Jamie after burning the confession. I'm like, okay, none of this is the way I thought this was going to play out. So in the grand scheme of things, he's talking to Jamie about what he saw and everything. And Jamie's like, oh, it's good, it's good, it's good. It's like, oh, your eyes are open, you're making progress. He's like, it's going to be, basically, Jamie wants to do what him and Nick were doing, but it's like, it's him and Harry. It's like, we have a connection. The fact of the matter is, it's good, your eyes are open, but don't worry, I'm not going to push you as hard as Nick pushed me. We're going to go at this, like, at a different pace and everything. And he's talking about the fact is, like, I'm going to go to school, but I'm not going to teach, I'm going to quit, because it's like, you're going to want to fight this. Like, your eyes are open now, but the fact is you got to live with it. You're going to want to try and fight it, go back to your old life, which is exactly what Jamie tried to do last episode, but it kind of blew up in his face. And so he realizes that now, so he doesn't want Harry to make that mistake. Just live with it, live in it. And he leaves. I'm like, this is weird. I was like, how are you? And it's like, he was recording a confession. Because I guess in his mind, the written confession could be a lot more like, that could easily get thrown out. A recorded confession of him openly saying all that is another thing entirely, like him admitting the whole Nick situation, that he was stopping Nick because he ended up talking about the fact is, Nick, like at the beginning, it was just kind of this back and forth between them, like he pushes me to do something, kind of like a dare and stuff like that. But then it started getting more and more dangerous, and Jamie just got tired of it, and he bailed and left the school and everything, kind of started his life over again. But when everything became a little too overwhelming, it's basically he ends up talking about the fact is he couldn't find meaning in his life. So the only time he actually found meaning in it was with Nick. So he wanted to recapture that, but obviously things just kind of spiraled out of control because Nick wasn't the same. Nick was already kind of wild back then, but now he's even more extreme in everything now. So that's why things kind of spiraled out the way they ultimately ended up playing out, So Jamie goes off to school to kind of quit and everything. Sadly, Harry turns over the confession, and it's like his partner's like, yo, good on you. That's good. Go ahead and arrest him. And Harry was like, no, you do it. You can tell from immediate, it's like he didn't want to be the one to arrest Jamie because he didn't want to have to look Jamie in the face when the time comes to get arrested. So obviously, like, they end up like, Layla ends up getting a lawyer and everything, which interesting enough, that actor, and interestingly enough, USA connection wise, he played Nico in Unnecessary Roughness. So I was like, that's interesting. I mean, it's just kind of like, because I just like that, because like when you actually think about it, like I brought up example of like Matt Bomer played Neil Caffrey on USA on, you know, in White Collar. So I like make comparisons like, oh, you're in a show on the same network that you were on a previous show that was on the same network. I know it's just getting too caught up in it, but I always think that stuff is interesting. But nevertheless, his lawyer's going to try and find, especially when he drops the bomb on Jamie, like, oh yeah, the reason why they're able to do this because there's a confession. What confession? Ambrose, he was recording you the entire time, and you can see it in Jamie's face. Like, wait, what? I opened his eyes. Like we had a kinship. He betrayed me. We can already tell ahead of time, like, Jamie kind of has issues about betrayal and stuff like that, especially feeling like he's betrayed, especially because him and Ambrose had this complicated thing where it's like, oh, you feel like you're my friend, but then you betrayed me. You're my friend, and you betrayed me. But like, no, I think in this moment, you were really my friend. Oh, no, it turns out you really, really effed me over, and you really, really betrayed me. And Leela's saying that basically, like, all that stuff you're keeping inside, you need to confess to what you did. And he was like, what? No, we can fight this. And it's, you know, for her, it's like, no, like, if you don't, like, all that's built up inside of you is just going to kind of corrode you and stuff like that. The fact that you kind of you owe yourself that relief, because the way you're looking right now is the way you've been looking for a while now. And she's basically like, you need to kind of cleanse yourself of all this by confessing, but he doesn't want to confess. He wants to fight it. So there's also so many other things. Obviously, Harry doesn't enjoy the whole celebration situation because obviously he's being celebrated. Like, oh yeah, Harry, he did such a big job. Harry, greatest detective ever. Having to be in a hole for like 6 hours. For 8 hours. Harry going above and beyond. Yeah, he's the best. Blah 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 blah. Harry doesn't do well with just, I think, for one, just other people, but also, like, he doesn't do well with compliments, because also these compliments are making him feel even shittier about betraying Jamie, because he's surrounded by people who don't understand him, but he found someone who kind of got him. And I feel like he finds that in every kid. Like, I keep bringing it up. He found something in Cora that resonated with him. He found something in Julian that resonated with him. And in this case, he found, it's so interesting that the people you end up getting connected with, that you find some connection with, are effed up people who commit kind of murders. I mean, granted, there's like, I mean, because he finds some kinship in their trauma, in his own trauma, you know? So it's interesting. It kind of makes me think of Lincoln Rhyme, how it's like, basically it takes one broken person to look after another broken person, like the whole Claire and Lincoln relationship. It kind of reminds me kind of a little bit of that. So that's where my mindset is on that situation. But, along with that, you know, Harry ended up looking in his dad's box at one point in time, and it was just a whole bunch of random stuff. It was like a book, a postcard. There was something else, but it was like almost like, wait, this is it? I guess, I don't know. Not unless it was a mistake, not unless it's supposed to represent like, oh, it wasn't all his dad's stuff, or either like it was supposed to represent the fact is that maybe it was supposed to, because I didn't quite understand what that meant. I was like, what does that mean? Like, is that supposed to mean like, oh, you thought you'd have some kind of answer, something to hold on of your dad's, but that distance between you is even more even after death because you have nothing to really, like there was always this like door, but like, you know, it was a metaphor, but there was always been a door between both of you in a metaphorical sense. And you were just never able to open it. And now that he's gone, there's just too much history there. And that basically, even after all this, there's nothing to really remember him by. There's some keepsakes and stuff like that. Or is it implying that the box was kind of given the wrong address type of situation? I don't know what to make of that. I assume it's the former and not the latter. Then there was also that situation of him talking to Sonia about the whole situation, about, you know, it's like, oh, you're dealing with some trauma, you basically having PTSD, you should talk to someone about it. He's like, no, I talked to my partner about it, but it's like, no, you need to get medical professional help. I mean, to be fair, Harry probably should have gotten some before now, but obviously even more so now, just because like you can definitely tell he's just like, he was already just a little, like a little off already before everything, but now like since coming back up after, you know, Jamie like unburied him, it just it just seems like he's even worse. Like he just doesn't seem right, because I think just for him, like everything in general just feels a little more off, like just the way he's seeing, just the way he's feeling, especially with this whole Jamie situation. So, but the fact is he went, you know, the sad thing is, like, he comes to visit Sonia later on, and she confesses about the whole Jamie thing. He's like, wait, what? And for her, it's like, no, like this was a moment between me and him. It's like, yeah, I was scared, but you know, he was just looking for a connection, like, which is interesting. And you know, because immediately Harry's like, oh, so what kind of, oh, you made a connection? She's like, no, I didn't sleep with him. And it's interesting because once again, it's like, oh, she was making a connection with Jamie, and then Jamie ended up making a connection with Harry. So it's interesting how that all kind of worked out. But at the same time, it's like, it does come put things in a weird situation, because he's like, why didn't you tell me about this? She was like, because I chose not to, and it wasn't like I wasn't obligated to tell you. I'm choosing to tell you. And the fact of the matter is, because I didn't, she had brought up before to Jamie, it's like, this isn't about me and Harry, so he doesn't have a right to know about this. It's like, this is just between you and me. And so maybe just all of that was just a little too much for Harry, because he already is feeling guilty about the whole Jamie situation, and just to have that kind of staring back at him, also knowing that he made a connection with Sonia. Because once again, it just brings up the whole thing of like, maybe there is nothing more beyond that. Maybe it's just Sonia is kind of eccentric, and she kind of goes about things her way, and it just doesn't gel well with Harry. Because for her, it's like, oh, I get it. You get to know what everyone else is thinking, but never saying anything yourself. Essentially like, oh, we have to tell you everything, but you never tell us anything. You just keep everything bottled up inside, which, yeah, that's obviously, you know, not a healthy situation. I know firsthand, you shouldn't do that, but I do it anyway. And Harry he doesn't talk. That's his issue. It's like, I mean, and I guess that kind of makes him the perfect cop. Like, he can draw you. The whole purpose is to draw you in. And it's interesting because I feel like he told Jamie more than he told anyone else, because I don't think he's really opened up to anyone else about that. I don't think even Sonia, and the fact is, I think that's what, once again, kind of makes him feel so guilty. But he went to go, you have Harry going to visit Jamie in jail. It's like, oh, like he wants to kind of apologize, because it's like, I felt that we had a connection. I know you felt it too. And basically saying like, I have a job to do. Basically, essentially, paraphrasing here, I put bad people away for doing bad things. But the fact of the matter is, he's still trying to apologize, because it's a complicated thing of being torn between what your job is, what you're supposed to do, plus how you feel about the situation. Doesn't go too much further, because Jamie ends up spitting in his face, ends up getting taken away. And then the court case, well, in court, things got interesting, because it's like, yeah, the confession's there, blah, blah, blah. But then the defense lawyer kind of does his thing, where he kind of starts bringing up all the, like, inconsistencies with what, you know, Harry did, his approach to this case, like, oh, you getting close to Jamie, oh, helping him plant a tree, this and that. You came to him beforehand, wanting to arrest him for, you know, the whole situation with Nick, but why didn't you? Not enough evidence. Yada, 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 so on and so forth, kind of running through everything, Harry's part to play and everything, where it's like, oh, you followed, you stalked Nick. It's like, oh, you're here at this part. I think the argument could be made that it was like, he has, like, especially with the whole thing of like, oh, here you are with Nick at this second party. Oh, look at what's that? Oh, what's this in this picture? Someone doing line of coke? Okay. Like, the thing is, they didn't focus on it, and I thought that's what the angle they were going for. Because all here is like, no, I didn't do anything. So I guess they're going to make the argument, oh, you were partying it up and everything. So your faculties weren't really 100% there. But I thought they were going to go down the angle of like, the fact is you call yourself a cop going after criminal stuff. There's someone literally doing coke in front of you, but you didn't do anything. I guess it's just because like, well, you can make the argument he's undercover and everything. So it's just, he's supposed to be trying to pretend to be a civilian. So you can make the argument that's why that didn't really turn into a conversation in itself. But it is, they're trying to say that his mind might have been impeded, like, you know, kind of showing that it's like, oh, you weren't there as a cop or to look after him, you were there to actually party up. Then there's the racing. To be fair, that was Jamie's situation, but still, you know, despite all that, it's not like he arrested him afterwards. You took him home. You literally drove him home. So it adds this element of just like, things are complicated. Like, there was even the whole thing of, hell, even to get this confession, what'd you do? You let him bury it? It's like, yeah. Even the judge is like, wait, what? You let him bury you for 8 hours? How long? How deep? I don't know, about 6 feet. And it's like, I love that. Even the judge was like, what the fuck are you doing, man? But I guess it's like, at the end of the day, you got the confession, I guess. But it was like, even the judge was kind of caught off guard. And you can tell, like, The prosecutor, she was not happy because it was like this was immediately going sideways. It wasn't kind of the slam dunk it should have been. It got super complicated because of Harry's relationship with him. Because it's like, oh, would you describe what you and Jamie have as a friendship? And he's like, no. Because the angle his lawyer is going about this is saying like it's manipulation. It's like getting close to Jamie, making him think you're his friend and kind of manipulating him into giving you a confession. Like it's a gray area in the whole situation. But it's like, so you went to visit Jamie yesterday at the prison, and Harry's like, yeah. It's like, what'd you do to go apologize? It's like, oh, so you did feel guilty about it. He's like, no. It's like, then what were you apologizing for? And Harry couldn't bring himself to say it because he was apologizing because he's like, I did what I had to do, but I did feel guilty about it. But it's just, it's a complicated thing because I think maybe Harry does understand it, but he just feels wrong admitting it. Or maybe there's a situation that even he still doesn't understand the ins and outs of the whole situation. Whatever the case may be, things just, sadly, when it was all said and done, Jamie did get released because it was like, none of that could have been accepted in the court, essentially, just because the whole thing was so muddied up. So the confession came from like such a muddy area of just like Harry just complicated that whole thing. So Jamie ends up getting released, wants to go home, but there's kind of a restraining order kind of keeping him away, which Jamie's like, what the hell? And it wasn't just Leela who came up with it. In fact, it was actually Ambrose, because he wanted her to keep her safe because he didn't trust Jamie. Jamie's already killed one person, because that person, quote unquote, betrayed him, right? So, that doesn't mean he won't come after Ambrose. The fact is, especially with everything, especially in this moment where Leela was like, you have to go. And he's like, well, you're not going to let me see my own child. It's like, I would never hurt you or our child. Like, I've known you for 15 years. I've loved you since the moment I laid eyes on you, like what we built and everything. And for Leela, it's the hardest thing because it's like, this is the man you love and everything, but he's still not a good guy, especially with everything. And she reminded me of something that I kind of let slip my mind. At the end, later on, she admits, she's like, yeah, he confessed to him. I was like, right, he literally confessed to you that he murdered someone, but it's still the thing of like, this is my husband. I'm not in her circumstances. That whole thing of like, complicated situations where like family, it's like, oh, when someone that you love commits a crime, it's like, do you stick by them? Do you abandon them? It turns into that gray area situation of you could float any way. Like I could say I feel one way now, but until I'm in those circumstances, maybe I feel differently. I guess it also depends on, whether it was something petty or whether it was something severe. I think all that stuff has to be I'm just saying you're entitled to feel multiple ways about it. It's not I don't think it's going to be an easy thing. It seems like from the outside it would be an easy thing, but until you're in that circumstance, I guess you wouldn't really know. But Jamie didn't take it well, being kind of rejected from his own home, and to the point and you see Nick cutting his hair, and I think it's supposed to representing he feels more and more alone because he got betrayed by everyone, the people he gotten close to, the woman he was married to. He's been taken away from his child, which is so interesting because what did Nick tell him at the beginning? None of that mattered. Your child, your wife, none of that mattered. And in the end of the day, it kind of got taken from him. But once again, I think it's still that whole thing of you're trying to fit into this normal life, back to that old life. It's like, no, you're way past that now. But also Harry's betrayal. And the moment it started cutting his hair, I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. What's this going to look like? And then it's like, he looks, I was like, oh, he looks like Nick. I was like, if he shaved the beard, he looked more like, oh, literally next scene we see without the beard. I'm like, okay, you are literally molding yourself to look like Nick. Because Nick is almost like this, interesting enough, using the term from Dexter, kind of a dark passenger type of situation where it's like, this is kind of like your darker instincts, I guess, almost to an extent. You let this darkness creep into you years ago and it just molded and manifested itself, and you pushing, you doing what you did to Nick, letting him die, kind of molded him into kind of this subconscious part of you. So that whole thing is going down. Then there's a situation with Nick going to visit Emma. I'm like, oh boy. I was like, this isn't good. But it's like, oh, why don't you come take a walk around the block with me? It's like, I probably shouldn't. My mom, and she's like, no, just come on around the block. She looks at the doorman of the place, and he's kind of looking the direction, but they just kind of go off. I'm like, you're not gonna asking about why this teenager's walking away with some random dude? But nevertheless, Emma talks about the fact that her life is actually a little better because of everything that's actually going down. She's going to take a year off of college, and then she's going to apply again, and her parents actually support her decision, are actually listening to her now because of everything that went down. So it's because Jamie's like, oh, you got to continue down a path, but it's it was almost like he was trying to like get Emma to kind of go down the path he did, but because of everything in their life, because I guess because of her parents, despite them kind of being a little, I guess, shitty, kind of pressuring her and stuff, the fact is they recognize their mistake and they're backing off. So she's not necessarily going to, because even Jamie was like, oh, that's good, because like I think the difference is like she had supportive parents that like realized like, oh, we screwed up, we effed up here, let's take a back seat, you know, we don't want to put this too much, we didn't recognize like what we were doing to our daughter. And I think that's the difference between Nick and Jamie. They didn't really have that family element there to kind of pull them back from the dark side. And Emma, before she even tiptoed in that direction, she had someone to kind of pull her back. So it's almost the thing of Jamie being, oh you're good, like everything kind of worked out, so it's like you kind of don't have to follow the same path I do. But he's like, oh, I'm gonna leave, and I'm like, man, this is weird. I can't stress it enough. This case did not go down the way like you thought. Like, oh, Jamie, he is a little sympathetic, but not to the extent like you thought like Julian and Cora were, where you kind of felt bad for them when you look at the circumstances that made them, you know. But it's like when you see Jamie's story, it's almost like a completely different beast in its entirety, which is, you know, it's such a fascinating thing, because I thought like, all right, I have some idea. Like I said, he literally was not in the same situation. Julian and Cora were arrested for most of the season, and like he got arrested, kind of walked away, kind of multiple times, but he didn't get truly arrested until this episode. But even then, it's like, that's a whole mess. Obviously, Leela brings in the blood because it's like, yeah, Ambrose told me about the murder that took place. This was literally the same night I cleaned the blood off his ear. And for her, he confessed to me a week ago, so I know that this is connected. And she breaks down because she's like, I didn't know what to do. He was my husband. But now they can't track Jamie, so they have no idea where he is. He's in the wind. It's like, dude, this is a mess of a situation. It's like, Harry kind of made this into a mess of a situation. He complicated that because it's so, like I said, it's so interesting because his weird and quirky and weird, I said weird twice because it is weird, but his process that he talked about before, it's like, oh, this is my process and everything. It has worked out for him in season 1 and season 2. I mean, granted, we don't know about his older cases and everything, but it completely botched everything this case. Like, he basically ruined this case because of his approach to everything. And so that's so fascinating to think about, because like Harry was kind of on top of everything in the previous 2 seasons. This is the season where everything fell apart. And that's such an interesting element to kind of keep in mind, because potentially what that could mean for the future. But I'll get to that in a second. The fact of the matter is we see, you know, their captain or boss or whatever golfing. I'm like, I was like, the fact that they're showing this doesn't look good. And lo and behold, Jamie's there. I was like, oh, this super doesn't look good. Oh, he's golf. Oh, you left your golf bag unattended. It's like, oh, please don't. Oh, and there he is with the golf club, and whack. I was like, wow. So that's interesting, because Jamie's officially spiraling, because he's more like Nick and everything at this point in time. So did he die from that? Did he just get knocked out? That's going to be the $1 million question when we see where all this takes us going forward into the next episode, which is the season finale. With the way things are, I'd thrown this out last episode, I don't think Jamie's going to make it. Like, I thought about that last episode. I was like, I get the feeling like Jamie's going to die at the end of the season. Like, that it's not going to be at, like I said, it's like everything is wrong. Like, at least with the way, you know, Harry kind of goes about his cases, at least he helps people out. At the end of the day, can he honestly say that he helped Jamie? And hurting Jamie, and, you know, especially if Jamie dies at the end of the season, what is this going to do for Harry? Harry already feels guilty, and, like, the person he found some, like, connection with, he ends up betraying them, and, like, seeing Jamie die, like, what's that all going to mean for him, you know? Because also, like, there's so much from that dream to interpret, you know, it's like everything with his mom. And once again, you can make the argument, maybe that's like, oh, with all these people in your life, you've never made a connection, a real connection with them like you would have with Jamie. So maybe that's what that's supposed to imply. Once again, the whole thing with his mom about betraying the people you care about. Like, oh, why'd you betray me? Like, we had you know, so guilt that he's kept buried for so long, and now it's coming and kind of bite back at him because of this whole Jamie thing. But I think when it's all said and done, Harry, maybe not even Harry, maybe other cops are going to have to kill Jamie. But then the question is, like, does he take other people down with them? That includes other people in his life. Like, is he going after a home dude just because it's like, oh, you're one of the cops? Like, is he going to go after all the other cops? Is he going to go after, like, his boss at school? Is he going after her? Is he going to go after Emma, Leela, and their son? Go after Leela's friend who kept getting in your relationship and stuff like that? like finally decide to go after Sonya, like a thing going to turn sideways, because if that happens, that's going to go super sideways, considering the fact this Harry kind of is a thing for her. I don't know what to expect, because I avoided the previews like crazy, so I'm legitimately blind as to what exactly, even there's not even a hint of what to really expect. Like I said, this season has just been wild with the direction it's gone. And I'm so curious to see how this one, maybe there will be some happy ending, silver lining, but I don't think so. Which is so interesting if they set it up that way, because that could be like, Harry could be super effed up after this. You know, what that could mean for him potentially in the season 4. Like I said, that depends on how everything plays out in the season finale. So we'll ultimately have to wait and see where everything takes us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.